Welcome to Boateng's Diary.
Thank you very much.
And then I have Kojo Akoto, who's also the head of Uni Media here at Citi FM and Citi TV. Kojo, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've been waiting for this day, the launch of the NDC's manifesto, to see what exactly will be in there, the key highlights and all that. But before we look into what exactly they gave us yesterday, I want us to start with the document itself and have a general conversation over that, and then we move into the issues as have come up with that manifesto. Nathan, run us through what they presented in total of that document.
Yeah. So yes, the manifesto, as we know it now, is a 147-page document. That's what they put together. Now, if you compare that document in terms of volume to the previous manifestos, this is about the largest the NDC has put out ever since you could start tracking
what numbers in pages have we seen?
Well, yes. So the 2012 manifesto had 56 pages. It was a very concise, compact document. Then the 2016 manifesto was slightly bigger. It was an 80-page document. And then you have this one, which is about 127 pages. The soft copy is 143 pages. So it just tells you how much went into it, a lot of work. They've put a lot of their thoughts, ideas, but it is not too surprising because this type of format I noticed when I looked at the NPP's 2016 manifesto, because it was also, again, one of the biggest they had put out so far, or the biggest they had put out so far in terms of their manifesto, because it contained largely problem statements, identifying what was happening at the time, what they felt was wrong, and then they went on to provide several solutions to the different problems related to the sectors. And the NDC followed their lead by also identifying problem areas, stating what they thought was going wrong, and then they also providing their solutions to the various problems that were happening, or the various problems that were present in each sector that they felt they could fix should they be given power in the December 7th poll. So generally that's how the document looks like, and then it's broken into 6 themes.
Okay, so the last 2016 we saw four themes.
They had four broad themes. This time they had 6 broad themes.
Similar or additions, or very
largely similar, but the only difference is that, for example, in the 2016, where you had, for example, things like education, health sometimes being separated, and you had some standout areas, a lot of those areas have been consolidated into some. The other bit that also stands out is that they put out a very conscious effort to highlight or to isolate foreign policy or international relations or foreign relations. That stands on its own. It has a complete chapter to itself, where they detail how they want to reposition Ghana in the international system, how they want to relate with our neighbors in West Africa, Africa, and the rest of the world as a whole. So those are the differences that you can look out for when you compare the two manifestos, 2016 and 2020.
Okay. But anything you've noticed from the 2020 that was similar to 2016 or very different that stands out for you in terms of the document proper?
Well, there are certain things that I think that the party wanted to emphasize. So if you look at the themes, and the various themes, 6 themes, there are certain things you would see in, say, promoting human development, which you see in creating sustainable and decent jobs. So there are certain line items that they re-emphasize in under certain themes, meaning that they are very important for them, and they are things that they want to communicate, and it's quite big. They also refer to some of the plans that they have and some of the things that they did. You know, whilst this government's manifesto, the NPP manifesto, for example, would give you an account of the progress so far and how they want to continue. These ones will also tell you what they've done and plans they put in place that this government has even done and new things they want to do.
Okay, so a 3-way plans so 3-way.
So basically, it's quite a big document, not as big as that of the NPP, but they've segmented the document nicely, and there are some summaries also that gives you a bit of help if you do not want to go through the whole document. There are certain highlights that you can easily pick out and then roll with.
Okay, before I go to the key highlights of this document, I want to look at what stood out for you people individually. We can start with you, Nathan. I don't know whether to give you 2 or 3, but maybe 3 things that stood out for you that you're like, okay, wow, let's sit down and have a discussion on this.
Yes, the infrastructure thing, the big push. You know, we've been talking about the big push the whole day. I don't know how and why I can't seem to get past that, but the big push was
the $10 billion
thing. That's a mega ticket thing. And then you also looked at the Okada thing. I won't say I was surprised it made it there, but it actually did make the manifesto. So it looks like that's something the former president is really thinking of doing. And then the other thing that stood out for me was the conversation about legal education. All the students in law school, they complain they are not getting access to the law school and all of that. That was also captured in the manifesto, and the NDC stated its plans as to how it was going to open up the space so more people could have access to professional legal education. Of course, there were others, but I feel that those 3 things kind of hit me hard. As I listened to the presentation, those ones stayed with me. Of course, there are 1,000,001 talk about maternal health, all of that, but you asked me of my 3.
So legal education, transport, zooming into Okada, and then the infrastructure, $10 billion infrastructure ticket. Kojo.
Well, I'll start from the maternal leave.
Maternity leave.
Maternity leave.
Why are you? The guys have taken this maternity leave World Cup that asked the women. No, what's going on here?
It's something I've been talking about since 2019, really.
Okay.
So when my wife gave birth, at 3 months she had to go back to work. And we don't have any help.
I know.
So we had to carry the baby. I remember at dawn we put the baby in a car, drove the baby along my wife to work, put the baby in a creche.
So the workplace allowed for her to bring
put the baby in a creche at 3 months. And I feel that if we say that as a country, the human being, the Ghanaian, is the most important asset or resource for the country, we also need to invest in how we take care of the babies when women are pregnant, when they give birth, and the first few years of the baby, the first few months are also very key. Now, the current system we have, that is just 3 months. Sometimes when you plan very well, you can add your annual leave to the 3 months so that you have maybe 4 months. You understand? I don't think it's enough. and I have proposed that we should be looking at 6 months.
So is there 4 months good enough?
Well, it's better than 3
months. And then
months.
1 week for you guys.
It's better than 3 months. And I think what that is getting us into is to push us to have the conversation about maternity leave and how we can run a system where the public sector works, the private sector works, and people do not lose their jobs because they want to get pregnant and give birth and take care of their babies. And I think it's very fundamental for me. So that one stood out for me. Number 2, another thing that stood out for me was the Ejumapa. Because look, in this country, all the governments have not been able to give us any proper scientific measure of employment and unemployment.
That's right.
And every government would come and tell us, we are doing this number of jobs, we are doing that number of jobs. Now, in this manifesto, the NDC says that they are going to create 250,000 jobs every year. That's 4 million jobs, 1 million jobs in 4 months. Sustainable, decent jobs with fair wages. It's something that stood out for me. And it's something that should they win, it's something that we will track because they're giving us numbers and timelines which are trackable. So it stood out for me. And the next thing is about the forestry and the environment. How they mention strategically how we are going to deal with our forest loss and the environmental degradation. I think that also stood out for me. There are lots of things that interest me in the manifesto, but if you should ask me to talk about the top 3 that I've had to think about and relate to, these three are the 3 for me.
Okay. I'm not going to talk about my theory because I'm not in your chair. I'm at the other side, so I'll leave it at that. But I think most of the things you guys that caught your attention similarly also caught my attention. But let's look at other highlights of this manifesto that have got people talking. Over 20 of the things they've said have got a lot of people talking in terms of the cost, in terms of how they'll be able to implement, if it's possible to implement, or it's not just a document of promises. So if we can start with, say, some of the highlights and probably start, Nathan.
Yeah, of course, apart from my big three, there are other things that also have been generating a lot of reactions from social media and all of that. Education came up for, it has appeared in a lot of the discussions that have been done since last night and through today. Of course, the SHS bit is there. The NDC says it will make free SHS better. So they admit that free SHS has come to stay. I'm sure the people on the other side will look at it and be grinning, but the NDC has promised to make it better.
So,
but
of course, that's on the education part on our screens. Okay.
And then, yes, the former president, John Mahama, has also stated that he's going to abolish the double track system. So that is very, very, very strong there. You know, very strong. He says he's going to abolish the double track system. In doing that, he says he's going to also complete the abandoned educational projects, including the e-blocks. Now, the e-blocks were started a few years ago in his time. They said they were going to build 200. Not all 200 were done, and they admit it. The present government has stated that it has done some work to complete some of them, but it looks like the NDC still wants to come back and finish this business that they started. So they feel that they need to provide more infrastructure, which will, in the end, ultimately abolish the double track system. So those are some of the things. Free TVET at secondary and tertiary levels. They're also looking at absorbing 50% of tuition fees or the fees that
a serious promise
that people pay at the tertiary. Yes, for the 2020-2021 academic year, which should start in the new calendar year.
If they win,
then
in December.
That particular promise. So absorb 50% of tertiary school fees, and also increase the student loan.
Yes.
So it comes in twofold.
And do away with the guarantees and all that.
So you're not going to pay as much as we've been paying for school fees, and you're going to be given more money in the form of loans for you to be able to take care of your education. So that's one of the promises. And he also talked about the public universities bill, and he says that it will be discontinued if not passed by January 7, 2021, and it will be repealed if it has been passed by then. So he talked about that. There is another thing which he also mentioned when it comes to education: a public university and a public technical university in each of the newly created regions. So it means technically each of the newly created regions will get two universities,
one
a public university and a public technical university. So he said a lot about education, even in the entertainment or showbiz space, the creative arts. NAFTI to be upgraded, that's also part of the education. So they've said a lot in education and what they want to do.
Why are they throwing a lot of emphasis on education?
I think it's just come out of what we are seeing in the present time. I think the first bit of it has to do with the transition from, say, basic to secondary or senior high school. You notice all the issues that go with the placement system and all of it. And the fact that till today, whether we like it or not, there are still children who, at the start of the process, do not finish. There are some children who go through primary and not get to GSS. There are some people who go through primary, get to GSS, and that's the end. Some can't even get to secondary school. Some go through SHS, and that is the end. So I think that it's a concern that is weighing heavily on the two parties. And also look at the fact that there is free SHS, so meaning that you have more numbers going from JHS to SHS, and so you have to provide for them. You have to make sure there are facilities, and you have to also strengthen this idea or the drive that says Ghana has to develop. If we have to develop, we need to be more educated. So it means that we need to have more schools for people to attend. So if you look at the 6 new regions, if things work out for them and they are getting all these schools, it means that more people will not have to do that trek from wherever it is to Accra or Kumasi to a major town to go to school. If there's one in your region, all the better. You get to attend. So I think that it's just reaction to everything that is happening. And of course, there's also the political side. The NDC trying to fight or counter what the MPP has done when you look at free SHS and the double track and all the issues that have come out of that. The student loan, the struggles of the people at the tertiary institution. So you find that all these things put together, for me, is the reason why I believe that the NDC is highlighting a lot of these things when it comes to education in their manifesto.
Well, while you stay on that point, Kojo, I don't know whether you can quickly pull out the NDC, the MPP's own issues to do with the student loan, because I know they also came up with some things they intended to do.
The MPP spoke about the student loan, and the NDC also has something on the student loan. Now, if you check education, the promises that they gave us previously. They said they were going to increase the amount of loans under the student loan scheme, and the report in their manifesto says that the loan amount has been increased by 50% and ranges between 1,500 and 3,000%. And then the bit about the guarantor for student loans.
Yes.
They say that in the MPP manifesto, make sure no student who has gained admission to a tertiary institution is denied access because they are unable to pay fees. We will provide all such students, with the exception of teacher and nurse trainees who are paid allowances, an option to obtain a student loan. And they say that without the requirement of a guarantor for the loan.
Okay. So MPP is saying you don't need a guarantor in the end.
It's in two folds. If you listen to the statement very well, no student who has obtained admission to a tertiary institution should be denied access because they are unable to pay fees.
Yeah.
And we'll do this by ensuring that the students get student loans, without the requirement of a guarantor for the loan.
That's right.
Provided he or she has a national ID number or from the Ghana card. And also deferred repayment of the loan after the national service, plus an additional 1-year grace period.
If you go to the NDC's documents, they say that one, they will abolish the requirement of guarantors as a precondition for accessing student loans.
So everybody's killing the guarantor.
Yes, to enable more students who need financial assistance access the loan. Now, in replacing the guarantor eligibility system with the possession of a recognized national ID
So the same
to
thing.
facilitate post-school tracking and loan recovery, virtually the same thing. They also say they will extend the loan repayment period to 10 years, including a 3-year moratorium to commence repayment.
Okay. So
And they also remove impediments and make the loan accessible for students in both public and private universities. So they introduced that particular.
a lot of attention being put on the student loan.
Yes, because again, if you, that's a place you can grab the attention, like you say, and have some, you can sway some votes your way, because the student community is heavy, high in population, and if you get some good numbers from them, they can help tip the scales in your favor.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the numbers game when it comes to the election. So everybody's trying to fight for the attention of the students. And as for the students, they are spoiled for choice now. They will have to make a decision on whose promise they will follow. But I think it should go beyond the promises. I think about this promise and I ask myself this question: how are we going to ensure that every single student, irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of whether they are able or physically challenged, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their gender, will we ensure that everybody, if I apply and my papers are genuine, will there be a guarantee that I will get the loan? Throwing these promises at the students, but we need to
The
think
system,
about
the structure available.
This is extremely important.
Yeah.
Extremely
Okay.
important.
Okay. So that's the highlights for you for education, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Health.
Well, education, there's the bit about special needs,
Yes.
which I think is also important.
Okay.
Paying attention to special needs education. We have a lot of people with special needs in this country, and you have institutions like that in the system, and they highlighted the special needs that they'll pay attention to that. So I think that's also worthy of note when it comes to the education space.
Okay. Great. Health.
If you go through health, the NDC's put out some very interesting ideas. First of all, they said they are going to provide free primary health care. This has
been running for weeks. The
Quite
candidate
interesting.
has been making some noise about it.
Yes,
But
yes.
what really are they seeking to do with this primary health care, and who does it cover?
Well, two large groups. First, they say for everybody, and then they kind of zone in on cocoa farmers. They say cocoa farmers will also enjoy free primary health care, and they will get some reprieve through the national health insurance. So generally, you are looking at the population. They want to ensure that primary health care is free and accessible to everybody, but cocoa farmers will also be taken care of under the initiative, and it's clearly stated.
But they specify, well, if you go to a polyclinic, if you go to a district hospital and all that, and then the NHIS takes care of the other category of health facilities, right, for the primary health care.
Yes, so if you remember in 2016 on health, there was talk about one-time premium for.
Yeah.
There was talk about one-time premium for that was 2012, 20. It's between 2012 and 2016. We've had that from the NDC, and this time they're talking about free primary health care, right? And a bit about the cocoa farmers. The NDC says that they'll provide free health care for all cocoa farmers and their dependents. Okay. And what they are going to do is to ensure that their premiums are sorted out with the NHIA.
So theirs doesn't include just the primary health, it moves to the NHIA for the cocoa farmers.
And then they will ensure that all cocoa farmers are duly captured so that they can go to the cocoa clinics for free.
Okay.
So that is the special bit on the cocoa farmers.
But initially, the setting up of the cocoa clinic, I thought it was supposed to deal with that. The original plan of setting up the cocoa clinic, which we have some in Accra and all that. But I don't know. I stand to be corrected.
Well,
but that's the question.
I also don't have
and
the history about the
scholarships in the end.
It goes to essentially to help
the industry.
Essentially to help people in the industry and those who kind of are related.
Yeah, but in the end, we had people whose parents or whatever hadn't done anything in that industry, but were enjoying those,
those are the defects with the system, and those are things that we hope will get corrected. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that promise. Again, you have to ask yourself, how is that going to be done? How is that going to be funded? The cost involved and everything. But at least they've mentioned it. So we just have to wait and see. And if you look at that and the NDC's big plans of building infrastructure, more hospitals and all. So I think it has to be a matter of access, because if primary health care will be free, it means that it has to be available first. The hospitals need to be available, the CHIPS compounds need to be available, the clinics need to be there, the polyclinics need to be there. And we should have a system that ensures that if I go, I'll really not pay anything, because the last thing you want on your hands is to have a policy which is free on paper. And then when you get there and in your mind, you know it is free, you are slapped with all kinds of costs you haven't planned for, and then everything is counterproductive. What you are trying to avoid is what you are leading people to face ultimately, and you won't have a lot of people making it out when they have all these various health challenges. So those are the things they've mentioned: the healthcare for the cocoa farmers, and then the general one, which should cover.
I'll let you guys continue with the health, but your big push policy, the $10 billion thing,
the big push,
has infrastructure covering health and all that. Do we know how much you're channeling to that sector in terms of development of infrastructure?
Big push is a $10 billion grand infrastructural plan. It's called the Accelerated Infrastructural Plan, and it's going to deal with electricity and water expansion, as well as communication, to the siting of health, educational, tourism, and other relevant infrastructure. We do not have the breakdown as to the number of healthcare, for example, the number of healthcare facilities that are going to be built, like the NPP says, district hospitals, regional hospitals. But the basic thing, for example, we are told that we will expand the 37 military hospital. We are going to construct 2 new infectious disease centers, construct new districts, regional hospitals, polyclinics, health centers, and CHIPS compounds. So we don't have the number like the NPP has stated categorically that they are going to do 111. But we have a few that have come up. So, for example, the new districts. So now we know the number of new districts and districts that do not have new health centers or district hospitals. So they are going to have it. And it's almost like the Agenda 111 anyway, because the Agenda 111 of the NPP is also to provide district hospitals for all the new districts, regional hospitals for all the new regions, and you put them in. So this one also says we are constructing hospitals for all the new districts and the regional hospitals, polyclinics, health centers, and CHIPS compounds. Now, if you look at the $10 billion for the big push, and if you want to do a back of
over 5 years.
Yes, a back of the envelope calculation based using Agenda 111 as a reference. The government has not told us how much it's going to cost, but based on the Ghana Health Service plan, the Estate Department, their plan and their cost structure for a hospital, we can assume or project that these hospitals are going to cost about $2 billion minimum.
$2 billion.
So that means health
of
alone.
Your 10 billion.
Yes, health alone could take $2 billion from the $10 billion, and the rest will be spread on other things.
And the rest are actually major infrastructure.
Well, they are major roads. If you look at the documents, it states that the NDC wants to complete the Eastern Corridor Road. They talk about
the Western
Corridor, and then they've got a new one called the Golden Triangle, a series of connected roads and all of that. So it is huge. It is huge. So if a good part of your $10 billion project, which is spread over 5 years, is going into if a fifth of it is going into building health facilities, then you also need to think about how all these other things will come into play, where the funding will come from. You have to ensure that all the other sectors get proper allocation. And I would have expected to see that breakdown, or like at least a hint of that breakdown in the manifesto. It's grand, big push and everything. You state a lot of very grand things under that heading. Yeah. I would have loved to see a bit of a breakdown, 20% here, 30% here, or just a fair idea of who's getting what, so we can all think about it and start to conceptualize. But we'll see how that one plays out. But it's clear that a good part of that money, like Kojo is saying, and per the estimates, will be going to the health facilities that will be built all over the country.
Okay. It appears they paid attention to the health workers, some tax waivers, some other things they're giving them.
Yes, so if you look at the various sections of the manifesto, really, they break down a lot of things. Now, even in the health, cocoa farmers, no premium, cocoa clinics going to take care of them. Then people aged 65 and above, free health care, right? And then on the health care workers front too, they address their concerns. So they try to address concerns at different levels to meet the expectations of different groups of people. That's what they've used this particular manifesto to do.
Because we are seeing, for example, the implementation of tax waivers in order to assist health workers, acquire means of transport to respond to emergency calls. Also, they intend to establish a housing scheme for health workers and provide residential facilities at all health facilities for health workers. Also, we'll see if they win, scaling up and training of physician assistants and emergency physicians, among others. A lot for the health workers. Okay, any more on the health? If not, we move to another sector that you feel that has some interesting highlights.
I think we've captured a lot under the health. Okay. We should also demand that these things so written in the manifesto, we need to have better and further particulars about how they are going to be implemented. We should demand this from all the political parties. For example, if you say you are going to have a housing scheme for health workers, how are you going to deliver it? Because I know that the Ghana Registers, the Nurses and Midwives Association and different health groups have acquired lands across the country, which they are selling at 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 cedis to their workers. Now, beyond that, how are we going to facilitate the construction of homes for these people? It shouldn't just be a statement. It should come with an executable plan, which the health workers and the whole nation would understand. Everything that any of the parties put in their manifesto should come with a plan that is broken down for us to understand, so we know whether this is realistic, this can be done, and how we all can play a role in achieving those things for our own good. Okay,
let me take some messages. When I finish doing that, we can look at pensions and taxes, if you allow me. But this one says, hello, Vivian, but what kind of politician? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, this one, Samuel from Apam says, kudos to the manifesto crafting committee for putting up people-centered manifesto, which seeks to alleviate the people of Ghana from poverty and provide jobs for the masses and less privileged. The people-centered manifesto is a winning one indeed. Razak from Boku says, hello guys, it seems politicians are taking the citizens for granted in the sense that both the NDC and the NPP manifestos have nothing to write home about, because everything will be in the so-called manifesto, but yet the implementation becomes a major issue. Okay, YY from Tamale says, good afternoon. The manifesto is the best because it's people-centered manifesto. Even the classroom teacher needs to use pupil-centered method in order to achieve their goals. And then this one says, the Okada business will give majority of Ghanaians homes and not make them tenants. But landlords during 2015, when he brought tricycles, popularly known as Yellow Yellow or John Mahama in the north, this Yellow Yellow gives young men money. Okay, I think essentially saying that it was a good thing for the Okada business, as well as the Yellow Yellow to be, pushed. But guys, let's look at pensions.
Yes, interesting dimension that the NDC brought in their manifesto, and they stated a number of groups and associations that they would be introducing a pension scheme for. Now, what's the context or what's the background? We do know that pensions would normally go to people who are very formal. So if you work in an established formal sector, either private or even public that has a good structure, you are assured of a pension. But the NDC is saying that they will look at organized groups for the informal sector, so cocoa and cashew farmers, driver unions such as GPRTU, Protoa, and the cooperatives, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Beauticians and Hairdressers Association, Dressmakers and Tailors Association, Garages Association, Artisans Association of Ghana, and Farmers and Fishermen Association. So all these people, per what the NDC is saying, they will introduce a new pension scheme for these groups. And it's important to note that these groups don't actually belong in this very formal thing, even though they are organized and all of that. They don't, the kind of work they do doesn't allow them to even earn a pension. A dressmaker, how is a dressmaker going to attract a pension, or a tailor, or a beautician, or a hairdresser, or a farmer, or a fisherman? So if you are not tied to, if you are not working under that formal structure of a private or a public entity, you are not guaranteed a pension. So I'd be interested to see how this is executed. But it's an interesting idea, seeing that all these people will be captured and they'll be giving a pension, or they'll get something in their days of retirement. Okay,
your pension.
Yeah. So it's I think it all comes to the formalization of the informal economy, where the governments are trying to ensure that they capture as many people as possible. Now, they want to ensure that the burden on the state is reduced at a certain point. You remember LEAP and all these things were introduced to support people, right? And if we do not ensure that we deal with some of these issues, and people retire, they are no longer productive, and they become a burden on their families and the states. How is it going to be done? If you check the NPP manifesto as well, the NDC manifesto, and you check even the NPP manifesto, they are all talking about the digital economy, formalizing the economy, national ID,
tax ID
numbers, improvement of the property addressing system. That is captured in the NDC manifesto. NPP has also been pushing the same thing. So they all want to push that so that they can formalize the economy a little bit. And if they manage to do that, they are going to provide pensions. Financial services are also going to have more confidence in lending to the informal sector, because now they can trace people and know people. And we can do proper planning in general because we are capturing a lot of data. So that's what the NDC puts in their manifesto. But and then they said they will broaden the tax base while containing tax rates. So they are going to provide pensions, but to do that, you need to do certain things, which can also help you to broaden the tax base. So in the tax bit of their presentation, they say they will broaden the tax base, they will improve tax collection,
and get small businesses for them to be exempted of corporate tax.
Quite a number of tax cuts as well.
Yes. Medium businesses, for example, if you are, for the small business, if you employ up to 20 people, you get to enjoy a bit of a reprieve in terms of the corporate income tax. So, like I said, the tax cuts are here and there.
You wonder how they are going to marry the two, because we've been saying this thing about widening the tax net has been every government's headache. Every budget is in there. We intend to widen the tax net, but it's difficult, especially trying to capture the informal sector, which is not well addressed, all that. That's been a major problem. At the same time, cutting, having these tax waivers, which will affect your kitty, whether you like it or not. Corporate tax to 15% from 25%. That's huge.
And small businesses will be exempted entirely from corporate and personal income tax. Newly established medium-sized companies that employ up to 20 staff will be exempted entirely from the payment of corporate income tax. Newly established medium companies that employ more than 20 will be exempted entirely from the payment of income tax for 2 years. There's also a bit that they mention when it comes to labor, that the labor offices will be decentralized and improved into the national employment bureaus. And companies that employ people through the employment bureaus will also be given tax incentives. So the NDC
plus,
is throwing...
plus the tax incentives for the entities that deal in sports. There was also that was also mentioned. So if you are a sporting agency or you work in that sports area, whether you are importing sporting equipment and all of that, you also get to enjoy a bit of a tax relief. So Vivian, I think that you raised a very great point. How do you balance the two? Because if you are going to broaden the tax net and improve your revenue collection, that is good. That's money coming in. But how are you going to get that money coming in if you are giving people tax breaks and all that? But that's something the NDC will have to answer. I'm sure as we get deeper into the conversation, they'll have to furnish us with all those details.
There's an interesting bit also to do with the tax, which has gotten a lot of people to react. Reverse the decoupling of VAT, NHIL, and Get Fund, which has brought untold hardships to Ghanaian businesses and households. Yesterday, when they mentioned this, I was monitoring the reaction on social media, and quite a lot of people in the finance industry and the tax industry were kind of happy with this particular announcement. And then another one, to address rural-urban migration, investors in rural communities are also being given tax incentives. They will be exempted from dividend and capital gain tax. And if they employ up to 50 persons, they will be granted tax exemptions and other incentives on the importation of capital equipment. So if the three of us, we set up Vivian Kai Lokko Industries and we go to a rural area, we stand the chance of getting tax incentives thrown at us with the capital gains tax and all those things. And those who want to go into the indigenous value chain, that is local production, such as mineral processing, petrol-based, agro-based, pulp and paper industry, they'll also give them special tax incentives and introduce the agric value chain tax incentives regime in the first quarter of 2021.
Again, if you look through, there are even more tax waivers for people, for manufacturers to increase the production of PPEs, for example. There are also tax waivers and guarantee credit for private health facilities that are importing their own PPEs.
Those who are currently doing the PPEs, they already have that tax waive, don't they?
I think the government gave them some kind of support during the COVID-19 outbreak, the initial stages where we needed to ramp up. And the government was the main off-taker for a lot of them, so they were assured of a buyer. A lot of companies, Nalem and so many other companies went into production of some of these things.
Okay, Nathan, you were making a point.
No, I was just going to add that they also stated that they would remove all taxes and wages on salaries for workers or employees in the PPE production sector for next year.
Wow. All taxes?
Yes, all taxes on wages and salaries for workers and employees in that PPE production sector for 2021.
Okay, so it appears a lot of tax incentives being announced by this government. Reminds me of the 2016 manifesto of the NPP at the time.
Where they said the NDC at the time was taxing people too much, the nuisance taxes, and they said they will shift the focus from taxation to production. I don't know what the NPP's reaction will be to this, but this is what the NDC plans to do should it get elected in December.
Okay, I'll pick some few messages and we'll move to other sectors that caught your attention as well. Now, this one says, this manifesto is indeed people's manifesto. Let's vote massively for JM to actualize this big ideas. This is from Breakthrough. Now, people with disability will have free university education under the NDC. Now, this one says, Vivian, both the NPP and the NDC parties are kidding Ghanaians to have their votes. Kobe says, good afternoon, Vivian. So I was watching the NDC's manifesto launch last night, and I was surprised at the demeanor of their candidate as well as their choice of songs. Okay. I'll just leave you at that.
About the gospel song.
Okay.
But this we've seen. So when you're in opposition,
Yeah,
when you're in government,
I think it's emphasized on. Okay, and then this one says, kudos to the whole team. Citi always locks me down, both radio and TV. After this, I'm going to listen to Eyewitness News. This is Kelvin from Denta. Kelvin, thank you. Good evening, Vivian. We, the Okada riders in Asham, are happy with the legalization and regulations of the Okada business. Israel from Asham and Lebanon. Okay, guys, transport. I think the key thing was the Okada issue, which he had been talking about for some time now. And of course, like Nathan said, it appeared in the manifesto. Is it about giving the people what they want in terms of this Okada matter? Because it get a lot of attention. Immediately he announced it.
It did. I think it's a number of things. Personally, I initially saw it as one of those things politicians will say anyway.
Yeah.
But some people have made the argument, or the job creation argument, to say that, look, people are already doing it. And we've gone out to interview some of these Okada riders. They say that we don't have anything doing, and it's way better than sitting idle for the devil to find work for you, or it's better than not doing anything. So the key point is the legalization and regulation. I feel that candidate Mahama will have to see this thing through, regulating it well, because for a lot of people who make counter arguments, those counter arguments are very, very solid. They talk about the injury rates, they talk about the fact that people are dying through these motorcycle accidents, they talk about crime, and that is a key red flag, crime. And if you listen to the police briefs and all of that and the kind of arrests they make, you can tell that motorbikes are used in crime. So the NDC will have to find a way of regulating it, and regulating it very well should they get elected. Else it will come back to bite them. And you wonder, again, candidate Mahama or former President Mahama will have to handle it well. Let's not forget, he signed the law that actually outlawed the commercial use of motorcycles. So if he's going to think, I don't know how and why this came up, whether he thought about it, I don't know. So he must have figured out a way of the regulation, because that is very important. If you listen to the counter arguments, they are very solid counter arguments. The arguments in terms of the job creation and all of that are great. So the regulation will have to be very, very key for this particular promise.
And on this, the key concern has been about the number of people dying, the number of people being maimed.
The main cause of our accidents on the roads is actually the motorcycle. And
they capture something on road safety, which is quite elaborate if you do the comparison. Point 8.2, they said road traffic accidents remain a major public health concern to many Ghanaians. And they give the statistics of people who die, 2,000 and 13,000 injuries a year, according to Road Safety Authority. Now, they said they are going to use the 5 E's of engineering, education, enforcement, emergency services, and engagement. And that they will pursue an aggressive public education and sensitization program through collaboration with key stakeholders, enforce road safety laws, strengthen the DVLA management protocols, redesign and construct roads to ensure pedestrian safety and vehicular movement in urbanized environments, retool the Road Safety Authority with sustained funding, redesign and construct accident-prone spots on major highways, and establish accident and trauma centers in communities. So even though they realize or they know that the Okada also contributes to the road safety problem of the country, they say, okay, we are going to legalize it, but we're also going to pay attention to road safety with the 5 E's. So they sort of are looking at the problem and the solution for the problem, so that at least it's not about legalizing and regulating alone, but they're also going to create a general environment of road safety for every means of transport to exist peacefully and safely in the system. So that's what they capture under their road safety.
Okay. Jobs. I'm told today you did a search on jobs. You came out 56 jobs popping up in that manifesto.
Yes, we actually did a search of the keywords in the manifesto. Now, jobs appear 56 times. But if you permit me to give you a list of the keywords, the top ones, the term government appeared 258 times.
258 times?
Yes. Okay. We actually have a simple infographic in the shape of an umbrella which shows you the words used the most.
Okay, so
Now,
that's your
yes,
lovely
government. So you see the government in green there is very big because
okay.
it appeared 258 times.
Wow.
NDC is also big under manifesto there in green. It appeared 238 times.
NDC.
Yes, Ghana appeared 217 times.
Okay.
Then we have people 173 times. National 165 times. Manifesto 155. And the interesting ones: development 148, sector 131, support 122, health 122. Now, education appeared 87 times. You asked about jobs. Jobs appeared 56 times. And if you want to know how many times tax appeared, Nathan, would you help me?
Single figures?
No, tax appeared 52 times.
52, so competing with the likes of jobs, economy, and all that, right?
And people are saying a lot of free was mentioned. Yes, indeed. Free appeared 49 times.
Wow.
Yes, so if you look at the top 20 words used, there are quite a lot. Farmers also appeared in there. Now, farmers 45 times, NPP 45 times. And the word increase this, increase that, increase this, appeared 45 times.
Okay.
So those are some of the words that. Now, economy. We say economy is big. Economy appeared 51 times.
Okay.
And system appeared 52 times. So these are some of the keywords that the NDC rather, used in their manifesto, and how often they appeared in the document.
Okay, I have to pull you guys back to, hold on with that, to the education part, because a lot of teachers are asking questions on their benefits. So this one says, did the NDC manifesto have any benefits for teachers? This is the first question.
Okay.
The second question for you is, can you help us understand exactly what the manifesto outlines for teachers, apart from tablet provision? Also, on disability, what are the major policy, apart from increment of the DACF and free education, which is now being enjoyed by all persons? This person really wants to know this. So if you can deal with these two, and then
the last one,
and then this one says, Madam, please, you've not touched on pensioners getting the 30 months allowance at the end of the if they come into power.
That was also mentioned, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
please.
So the last one you mentioned was disability.
Yes.
Part of the road safety strategy was also to make our roads safer for persons with disabilities. So they mentioned that special needs education, you can broadly say it also covers people with disabilities. Now the teachers, the person said aside access to devices, right?
The tablet,
Yes, they mentioned
what are
access
they
to
getting? That's
They'll be getting
special people. What are the
There'll be
teachers?
special incentives for those who are accepting postings to rural and deprived communities. They will also be getting some training and motivation for teachers and caregivers in special schools. Also, the NDC is promising to abolish the mandatory national service and teacher licensure exams for graduate teachers. Remember, the licensure exam, big thing, had a lot of reaction there. And
So
they
it's
also
been abolished.
Yes, they are also planning to open special credit lines to facilitate the access of teachers to loans.
And they'll increase the teachers' retention premium.
Yes.
Reinstate the payment of responsibility allowances to teachers. And the free tablets, we've mentioned it. And restore automatic employment of newly trained teachers.
Okay.
Automatic employment of newly trained teachers. So those were some of the key points mentioned.
Okay, so I hope the teachers are now satisfied and they will come. Now there's another one.
Even teachers and health workers. This is in the enjoyment.
And now the Okada drivers are enjoying their
Health workers.
Okay, this one says, wow, Citi TV and Citi FM, the best and educative station. The Voters Diary is the best program. Please tell Nathan and Akoto they should highlight on the SNIT mortgage for those who contribute to SNIT over 10 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So pensions have come up as one of the key things. Now the NDC wants to amend the Pensions Act to improve efficiency in service delivery. And then on the bits to do with accommodation and housing, they said they are going to help people who have been paying SNIT for 10-15 years, right? To rent to own. so that they can also own homes.
They use their contributions as collateral to access mortgage loans.
Okay, so could you hang on with that answer? Let Nathan take it whilst you see if you can give us the diagram on that.
Well, yes. So like we just said, if you've been contributing for between 10 and 15 years, the NDC is saying that your contributions will be used as collateral to access mortgages or a mortgage loan. In line with that, the NDC is also saying that the National Mortgage Assistance Scheme will be put in place, where there will be rent to pay agreements that spread over that's like between 15 and 20 years for public sector and private sector workers. And like we've also stated, the collateral will be used for those who are contributing for mortgages. And in terms of housing, the NDC is planning on restructuring the rent control office into an authority to implement the new Rent Act. Now, the new Rent Act is seeking to allow tenants to have some flexibility, so you don't pay 2 years, you can pay 6 months and all of that. So that's what is happening now. It's yet to be fully done. I think it's at cabinet level, and if you go through the NPP's manifesto, it states that they'll work hard to push that thing through so that people can have access to housing. Now, the NDC is also promising a minimum of 20,000 low-income houses all over the country. Let's not forget our housing deficit is about 2-3 million. Huge. So governments have tried all kinds of things that have not worked. Let's just hope that this will go through. Again, if you do a quick juxtaposition, the NPP will also have its own scheme. They want to deal with landlords and landladies, register them onto a scheme where the money goes straight into their bank accounts and all that, just to give people soft loans to access places to live and all of that. So those are some of the things that the NDC is talking about in its manifesto in relation to housing, accommodation, by extension, what some people's pension contributions will be used for to access mortgages and all that. Okay,
let me take a few messages. Hello, kudos to your professionalism in your interpretation. I keep wondering what will happen after December 7th, because everything clearly shows NDC's manifesto has really impressed most of us. We pray for their victory. First time voting for the NDC. I believe they will deliver. This is from Richie, American House. Hello, Vivian and team. Anything on Agric and the NDC's documents? Dua from Hacho.
Well, maybe we should spend a whole day.
So guys, we'll be doing the various sectors as we go along, and even a comparison between the MPP and the NDC's manifesto. So don't worry, we're going to do all that for you. But
a lot has been said.
I think you should just give him a few highlights, and then when we get to the Agric Day, he gets to get the details.
Okay, so if you can. We are going to get the free fertilizer again. That's a promise that is coming in the agric space. Now, the NDC's manifesto also is going to introduce agric value chain tax incentives on the tax front. Now, a key thing is also to work more on agro processing. Now, another thing that's caught my attention is to upgrade the Oahu Agric College into a University of Agric. So that's the larger Agric, and expand crop exports into the international market. They're also saying that they will invest a lot more in irrigation to improve vegetable production, to reduce our vegetable imports. So a lot has been said in Agric, and it will require a full show, really, to break down whatever is being said in Agric.
And we'll give them just that. Okay, more questions. Good afternoon, Vivian. Please, the question is, will NDC pay all our legacy arrears if given the mandate? Okay, this one says, this is the most powerful manifesto the NDC has ever produced. But my people, these three things, are you people sure it will help develop the country, you ask? Okay. This one says, you guys are doing a wonderful job. These politicians will try very hard to convince us with the manifesto to vote for them, but when they come to power, they do what they like. This one says, I'm really enjoying the show. I applaud the NDC for rebranding the party and for their plans to continue the free SHS and also add the private sector. If not, most people in the classrooms will, I think, that truncates it. This one says, Abena Sewa says, Dr. Baumia, President Kufuado are only interested in jabbing GM. I think we can do without that. Okay.
Somebody was asking about legacy.
The one that they'll pay
I wonder,
arrears.
but what has been stated in there, and the former president himself said it yesterday, that as soon as they come to power, they are going to pay off all the people who have their monies locked up.
Yeah.
In the reform, the cleanup that affected a lot of the institutions, financial institutions, and that was heavy. And they stated that they were going to pay no long-term payment plan, nothing.
So how is that going to pan? Do they give us a detail? Because
they're just saying that in their first year or as soon as they get into office. So I don't know how that is going to pan out. Is it because in the current climate, this is what is hot and trending, and it is stirring up a lot of emotion, because if people have the assurance that my money will be paid,
okay.
but on this arrears bit,
yes.
I believe the person was referring to salary arrears.
Yes.
There are arrears all state-owned enterprises, right? They mentioned that the term arrears actually occurred only once in the manifesto, where they said that the NDC government will ensure that all debts owed state-owned enterprises are clear so that they can continue work and so forth. But this person was asking about the legacy arrears. I remember salaries.
Yes, salaries.
Some time ago, some people were owed salary arrears, and the government said that no, we cannot pay all these arrears. We are just going to pay you 3 months of those. And you see, that was one of the big issues that affected
teachers.
Yes. I think some other sectors as well.
Yes.
That was one of the big issues that affected the NDC back in 2016. So they are asking again, is the NDC going to pay those legacy arrears? Now, in all these things, Vivian, we've had a lot of big money, $10 billion. NDC mentioning $10 billion, that's the big push. The other things have not been added to the $10 billion. NDC has also, NPP has also mentioned some 100 billion Ghana cedis for the Ghana Cares program. The parties should come back to Ghanaians and give us a breakdown of how they intend to raise revenue and get the money to do this. Are we going a borrowing? If we say we are going to broaden the tax nets and improve tax collection, what estimates are we looking at? What strategies are we using? We should not say that in a vacuum. Because when we come, we will expect you to deliver the $10 billion. That's
right.
Or when the NPP states, we expect them to deliver the 100 billion Ghana cedis. But how are they going to get that money? Nasika no wahe.
So tomorrow we'll be looking at how they intend, we'll be looking at the NDC, how they intend to pay for that, the details around some of the things they've said, because all of the things you need to understand and how they intend to do that. This one from Abiling Emperor says, I think the two major parties are not thinking into the future as Kwame Nkrumah did, but rather changing things. We need permanent solutions, not stories, you see, Emperor says. So our time is up, guys. I have to leave it here. We'll return tomorrow and look further into the NDC's manifesto, which was launched yesterday. Thank you so much for joining us, and those who sent your messages, thank you as well. I had Nathan Quao, head of research at Citi FM and Citi TV. I also had Kojo Akoto Boateng, head of new media at Citi TV and Citi FM. My name is Vivian Kai Lokko. We'll return tomorrow at 3 o'clock. There's a repeat at 10 o'clock on TV today. Goodbye.
Well, hello, and welcome to Keyboard Idol. It's Ghana's biggest keyboard competition, also on Citi TV right here and across sub-Saharan Africa on DSTV channel 363 and of course on GoTV channel 182. My name is Jessica, your regular hostess for this particular show, and I'm totally pumped, totally excited, especially about the performances that happened last week. The very first performance episode was absolutely amazing, and I'm sure that you agree with me as well. Now, today's show is brought to you by Santor Energy, by Tech Aid, and Faith Works International School. Now, let me just go right into it, because tonight there are various ways that you can interact with us. You can use the hashtag Keyboard Idol. Let us know that you're watching. You can send us a WhatsApp number or WhatsApp message, and that will be scrolling on your screen shortly. So that's